And it's days like today that I'm really happy I don't have to do this on my own. Because if I was, I'd either be yelling into this microphone for an hour straight or it would be dead silence for an hour straight. And I'm going to need you to carry me through this or else there's going to be trouble.
I think this is the first time in my life that I am upset to be right.
Yeah, I'm pretty upset that you were right. Well, I was right too, kind of, I guess. But
yeah, we called Tampa in 6, right? Very, very, very upsetting. But I mean, did you expect anything less coming into the series? Like, okay, I got to ask you a question. Coming into the series, did you actually think there was a realistic chance we won? Obviously, there was a chance. Did you think there was a realistic, like, non-trivial chance we were winning the series?
Yeah, I had confidence in them.
Really?
Yeah, I thought I knew this team was going to be different because they couldn't be what they were last year. I know Tampa's Tampa, but the Leafs were the best team they've ever fielded in history. They broke their points record by, I think it was close to 10 points. They're a good team. They played Tampa well all regular season. And what are you going to do? But I did have confidence, even though I kind of bet on Tampa in this just sort of as like a reverse jinx of some sort. Because I didn't want to, put the Leafs on top. But I did have confidence in the back of my mind that they could win it. And they came up short. But I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I'm like, no disrespect to all my friends. I'm like the biggest Leaf fan I know. I wanted these Leafs to win so badly. And I didn't think it was going to happen, to be honest with you. But here's what I'll say. If you would have told me that coming into this series, Austin Matthews would average over a point per game, score 3 goals, and Jack Campbell would be the better goalie in this series, I would have bet the house on the Leafs winning. Yeah. Coming into this series, we said 2 things. We said, number 1, goaltending. Jack Campbell had to at least be just marginally worse than Vasilevsky. Just keep them in the game, average goaltending. Campbell and Vasilevsky had literally the same goals against average and save percentage virtually. The only real Vasilevsky we saw was in Game 7, and he took over, right? So, number 2, yeah, like Vasi was human for 6 games. We lost this series before Game 7 because you knew Game 7 Vasilevsky was coming out. But anyway, we'll talk about that soon. The second one we said was special teams. We said the Leafs had to be better on the PK and the power play, right, in order to win this series. And even Nick said that too on the interview in the last show. The Leafs had a power play percentage of 17.25. Tampa was 21.5. They beat us there. And our penalty kill was better than 5 percentage points. I mean, they did the 2 things we said they needed to do. What happened?
You just got beat by a good team.
That's definitely what it is.
I don't think there's anything you can nitpick about the Leafs' performance that suggests that there should be outrage. It's just disappointment. I mean, like last year, the whole fan base, the whole city was angry, and they were rightfully so, because last year was embarrassing beyond belief. This year, it's not even anger. It's just you just feel hurt because they played so well. They did everything that you could have asked of them. We just went over those stats. They were good in the areas that we thought they needed to be good in. They just lost.
Yeah, I mean, it's still embarrassing this year just because it's been 5 years now. Like, the Leafs are 0-10 in series clinching games since 2015, like the Austin era. It's if this was the first or second series the Leafs lost in Game 7, there's a lot of positives you take away from this, right?
Sure.
Yeah, it's just gotten to a point where at this point, anytime that you lose in the first round, it's embarrassing. Even though these are literally the back-to-back Stanley Cup champions coming into this playoffs, I thought that Tampa was the best team to make it into the playoffs. I think they're better than Colorado, like, honestly.
I mean, yeah, how can you say that they aren't the best team in the league? They won the past 2 cups.
Yeah. So when I think about what happened, like why we lost, number 1, you're right. We just got beat by a better team. Like, we stood toe-to-toe to them. Austin Matthews said it best. Like, this is a game of inches, and it is such a fine line. We stood toe-to-toe with this team for 7 games. There's only 1 game that was a blowout. We blew them out 1 game 2. We were right there. I thought we were the better team for most of the series.
Yeah.
Just at the end of the day, we got beat by a more experienced team, and you knew coming into that third period last night that there was no chance. And the reason why I say this is, like, this is what Sheldon Keefe said after the game too in the post-game conference. He said one of the biggest scouting reports about the Tampa Bay Lightning is that they are the best team in the league at holding leads going into the third period. they knew they needed to be ahead of these teams going into the third. Did you see what happened last night in that third period?
Yeah, they collapsed and they didn't let us shoot. They were blocking everything. We didn't get any real high danger chances in that third period because they locked it down as they do.
Yeah, not a single high danger chance. Nothing got through the neutral zone. Every time the Leafs entered the zone, it was through the periphery, and we needed to take a low danger shot from the hash marks on the outer side. I mean, you're not going to score a goal against a Conn Smythe winner and back-to-back Cup champion like that. Every single shot from the point was blocked. That team is just a team of champions. Like, what are you going to do, right? The only thing I can see the Leafs like that served to the Leafs' detriment was they took bad penalties at really bad times, and we can argue whether the penalties were worthy of it, but at the end of the day, Kerfoot cannot take a penalty to cause a 5-on-3 200 feet from his own net when they're up 3-2 in the third period. Even if it was not a good penalty, like, you can't do that.
Well, the only reason they were on the penalty kill is because the ref blew a call.
Which one?
Cal Foot hit him in the shoulder and he snapped his head back like he got shot in the head.
Yeah.
That's so that they should never have been on the penalty kill in the first place. But that aside, he was trying to make a play down a man in the offensive zone. It's a silly penalty. Maybe you don't have to be that aggressive when you're killing a penalty and you know the puck's safe when it's in their zone. So that was a stupid penalty, but I don't know. I think early in the series there was they were taking a lot of stupid penalties.
Yeah.
I think the refs for a bad reason played a bigger role in the last two games. We can talk about the refs all we want, but let's just give credit to Tampa and also Nick frickin' Paul. Like, this guy comes from Ottawa, scores his only 2 playoff goals of his career. Granted, he probably wouldn't have had any playoff games because Ottawa's crap. But I don't know. That's just such. Of course, it's him. Like, we were talking about it yesterday. We watched the game together. Kucherov, Stamkos, obviously Point because he got hurt. None of their big boys were like, they were invisible almost the whole entire game.
Yep.
And I guess that's why you get depth, because they can score a goal every once in a while that wins you a series.
Yeah, no, the team is deeper than we are. Actually, I don't even know if they're deeper than we are on paper. They just know how to win. There's just some intangible quality about that team that lets them win. And you know what? That team went through a lot of problems early on when that core was being built. You remember they got swept by Columbus. They were getting kicked out in the first round. And now, look, they're a team of champions. Like, maybe the Leafs need to go through some learning in order to get there too, but it's been 5.
It's been a lot of learning.
It's been a lot of learning. At the end of the day, bad penalties were what lost us this series. Honestly, you cannot let a power play with Hedman, Stamkos, Kucherov, Point get that many chances. And I mean, especially taking it 200 feet from your own net with 8 minutes left. You're up 3-2. Like, come on. Like, aside, not to be a salty, ref hater, but how does 5'7" Alexander Kerfoot give an elbowing penalty to a 6'8" Hedman? There was a lot of talk that Hedman hit himself.
Hedman it was almost like Hedman lifted Kerfoot's stick and it rolled up and hit him.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess you have to. They were saying on the broadcast, I think it was Kevin Bianchi saying, "Oh, still got to be responsible for your stick." But when someone hits it, there's only so much you can do. That's still a penalty, but it's hard to put all the blame on him. But maybe did he get himself in a situation where that was possible and he shouldn't have done that in the first place? You could argue that, and I wouldn't argue against it.
Yeah, here's why this stings so much more. It's because of these quotes that John Cooper was making throughout the series that pissed me off so much. Yeah. That one comment about Jack Campbell saying, Jack Campbell basically hasn't been that good. We're just giving it to him. And then Jack Campbell comes out and stands on his head to shut John Cooper out, and we still don't get the win for the guy. And then the other John Cooper quote saying, they're not really winning or earning anything. We're giving it to them. Man, if I was Sheldon Keefe, I was telling you, I would have printed that quote on size 100 font and plastered it on every single locker room, change room that I could find. And just before every single game, tell my team to just read these quotes. Like this is what they're saying on that side. Yeah. It's just, it's sad. Here's what I'll say. I think there's a lot of positives to take from this season. We didn't beat ourselves. We just got beat by a better team. But at the end of the day, we lost. So, what happens now? That's the big question.
This is the day after. I can't even think clearly, but my first instinct after that period is not series rather is that in a weird way I don't know, I'm kind of proud of this team, and not really proud of them because they still lost, but they lost in a more respectable way.
Yeah.
I don't see what making wholesale changes or big changes does of any benefit. We lost to this 2-time Stanley Cup champion. We broke our regular season points record. I know regular season doesn't matter in the playoffs, but it shows that you have a good team. Are there places that this squad can be strengthened in? Absolutely, but I don't think that means you got to trade one of the big four. You got to fire Keefe and you got to fire Dubas. I don't necessarily think that will amount to progress because the team's been built in a specific way. I know it hasn't worked out yet, but I do have faith. This team's good. This team is very good. It's only a matter of time before they do something.
So
I don't necessarily.
Do you have faith that this team, given 3 or 4 more first-round chances with this core in this division, can win a Stanley Cup?
3 or 4 is a lot.
It is.
I do think that they can do it. Absolutely. We just said they were the better team against Tampa. They didn't win, but they were right there the whole way. I don't see how making a big change is going to fix this because they were so close.
Yeah, I don't think the word better is objectively true. They were equally as good. They were good enough to the point where either team could have won, but they didn't dominate Tampa, right?
No, they didn't. No, and no one's going to dominate Tampa,
Yeah.
but they were better in Game 6 overtime. Game 6 they came back. Game 5 they came back. They showed so much resilience that we had never seen out of a Leafs team before. They were better than the team that they iced last year, that's for sure.
Yeah, okay, here's what I'll say. Like, theoretically, if this was the first Game 7 loss, or even the second, or maybe even the third, you do nothing. I agree. The Leafs have had their best season, third in the league with 115 points, took the best team in the league. I think the best team in the league. Back-to-back Stanley Cup champions, toe-to-toe to 7 games and lost by a goal, right? This conversation is so much different if the Leafs score in Game 7, right? Score in overtime in Game 6 where you go, look, this is the team. They're constructed to win. They didn't do it. So it's hard for me to say, tear down the core, clean house. I don't think you should. But there has to be something said about a team that just cannot win. Like, I wonder if this team, like Austin Matthews and John Tavares, look at the team and go, like, can we just not win? It's been 5 years.
I know.
To not good teams. 3 of the teams were good.
Yeah.
Right? Is there something to be said about a team that just cannot win? Going into this series, I would be hard-pressed to think that the Tampa Bay Lightning were not licking their lips going, we're going to beat this team. We're going to beat this team. What do you think was going on in the Big Four's head in Toronto going into this playoffs? Like, honestly, what was going through their mind?
Based on how they played, I think they felt confident. I think they were thinking to themselves, okay, this has to be the year. Because they played with desire that I had not seen them ever play with. They were all, like, finishing checks and digging in the corners, barring Willie on a few occasions. But the guys that I'm thinking of, John Tavares, Austin Matthews, even Mitch Marner. Mitch Marner has probably been the one of those 4, even more than Willie, has gotten the most flack over the past few years, and deservedly so at times. But he came out, he put up 8 points, he was 7 points, something like that. He was so good. I think what was going through their minds is we got to win, we got to do it, it's time, and they couldn't. But I don't think it was for a lack of trying.
No, I agree. I just wonder if these guys were thinking, like, I agree, saying, like, we need to win. But I wonder if they're also thinking, like, man, what if? Like, what if we don't win? What if?
It's probably hard not to think about that because of this, because of the circumstances.
It has to be a culture thing, and that's what I'll say. And that's such a vague, broad thing to say. And I know that's like an old timer way to say that, this team isn't built for the playoffs, they can't win. I don't agree with that. I think this team is built to win a cup. They're deep in the top 6. Their defensive pairings are fantastic. Their goalie showed this year that he's unbelievable. This team on paper is built to win, and they're gritty enough to do it. But man, I think you have to make a move. I think you have to change something in the core, because I wonder if these guys are looking at themselves saying, we are unwinnable. Like, those times in your life when nothing is going right and it's out of your control and you just need a change.
Yeah, sometimes
is it that
you
time?
do. Sometimes you do. I just don't know how a change will, like, necessarily make you better.
I agree, but it's been clear now that it's been 4 years where no change is not making you better, right? And it comes to a point where if you're going to knock this down to it being a culture thing, because it's not a depth thing. Last year we said it was a depth thing. This year they got Kemp, they got Kasha, Mikheyev is playing well, Curve is playing well, Engvall is playing well. It's not a depth thing. 2 years ago, it was a defensive thing. This year, our top 4 defensemen, I'm sorry, I think are just as good as the top 4 in Tampa. Last year was also a goalie thing. We had a Vezina candidate in the first half of the year, and in this first round, he played like a Vezina candidate, right? There's nothing else that you can do. And once again, I was having this conversation with some of my friends that work at The Athletic, and they were all saying, do nothing. I agree if this was the 3rd season, but dude, it's been 5. You got to do something.
Well, what's that something then?
I think you need to make a change to the core, but you can't be stupid about it like you're saying and make a move for Mitch Marner. Like anybody who's saying Mitch Marner has to go doesn't understand hockey. There's maybe 3 wingers in the league that are better than him, and this year he played like a top 3 winger in the league.
Yeah.
Right? The only wingers I can see better than him objectively are Mikko Rantanen, maybe Brad Marchand, and on a good day, Jonathan Huberdeau. I don't even know if I take Huberdeau over him.
I wouldn't.
Right? You do not trade Austin. John Tavares is unmovable. You don't trade Mitch Marner. There's only one guy left.
It's Willie?
Yeah, it's the most movable contract. You know, he put up 82 points this year. He was point per game. I mean, he's on a very team-friendly $6.9 million. If there's one guy to go, it's him. I'm hard-pressed to think William Nylander plays another game as a Toronto Maple Leaf.
And do you trade him for what, another winger?
I don't know. I just think you make a big change to the core, to save face, but more so to show this team that, like, you're committed to making a change. And the reason why I say this is because you would be so stupid to get rid of this top 4 playing the way that they did this year if they lost in the first round in the second year. But it just seems like these 4 can't win together, and you got to do something. Like, am I crazy to think that?
No, I don't think you're crazy to think that. I'm just hesitant to make a change for the sake of making a change.
I agree. And that's why last year and the year before I said no, because for that move, like, you don't make a change just to make one and just to show your fans like, oh, you know, we're committed to being better, when that makes you objectively worse. But if the only thing we can chalk this loss down to is a culture thing or being unlucky, I mean, there's only one way to change a culture.
I don't necessarily think it's culture, though.
You don't?
No, because I would say it's culture if they came out the same way they came out last year. But they showed that they're willing to play for each other. They showed that they're willing to bounce back when they're down 2 in games 5 and 6, and in game 7 play until the very last buzzer. I would say it's culture. If, like last year, they came out in game 7 and barely had any scoring chances in 3 periods and got beat by an objectively worse Montreal Canadiens team. Like, then, if it happened 2 years in a row, I would be on that bandwagon. I would be the first person calling for change, because that's a pattern. But they just showed a different side this year to me, that, and maybe you do make a change. I wouldn't be fully opposed to a change if I was like, oh, okay, this is a good trade. But just trading any player for the sake of making change to save face or even just to do it, I don't necessarily agree with it. But little do I know, they can make some sort of change and go on and win the cup next year. And I'd happily look like an idiot for saying that, but I don't know. I'm hesitant to do that.
Yeah, no, I agree. You don't make a change for the sake of it. I'm saying maybe move Nylander just to have a somewhat of a fresh start, maybe have somewhat of a new core, because any Leaf fan knows he is part of the big 4. He is part of that core.
Yeah.
You can't move Morgan Riley. He's a great deal.
Yeah,
right?
He just signed a contract too.
Yeah, there's only one guy that can be moved, and I think you need to shake up the core in as minimally as possible just to have a fresh start. Because, like, what does this team do? They come into training camp next year going, oh, well, we're going to be a 110-point team. We're going to lose in the first round again.
Well, this is the thing, though. Like, when Tampa lost against Columbus, they got swept 2 years. The year before they won their first cup in 2019, I think understandably so, a lot of people were saying, oh, how does this team come back the next year and like look each other in the eyes and say, oh, yeah, we can do it this year after we won the President's Trophy, Nikita Kucherov won the Hart, and then we got blown out by a pretty bad Columbus Blue Jackets team. And then they went on to win 2 cups. And I would be saying the same thing about last year, the Leafs. How do they come back this year after that season, last season, where they went out to the Habs? If anything, I would expect that to make them have like a worse season, but they were even better, and they played even better in the playoffs. So I don't know if that's why I'm saying I don't think it's a culture thing. If it's, I would have been asking how can they come back from this last year and they did come back from it. So I think they can come back from this.
Yeah, but they didn't get any better this year. Like
They were objectively a better team.
They lost in the first round. I don't think they're a better team. I'm gonna be honest with you.
They are a way better team because they lost to a way better team and they played way better. I know the result at the end of the day is what matters, but the context is important too.
Is it when you've lost 4 in a row? You lost, but you lost.
You lost, but there's context in the loss that's important to take lessons from.
I agree, but in the 5th one, I think it comes down to win or lose. I agree. No, when you lose in the 3rd one, there is context, but like you lost for a 5th year in a row. Like you lost. That's just what it is. You lost.
Yeah. I know you lost.
They didn't get better. They didn't go any farther.
They didn't go any farther, but I think it's tough for me to say they didn't get better because what we saw with our eyes was a better hockey team.
They are a better hockey team, but I mean, did they gain any confidence this year that thinking that they are they any closer to winning the cup now than they were last year?
Yeah, I think so.
Materially, like good enough where you are confident that if you do not make a change this year, this team can win a cup next year.
Well, I would have more confidence than I did last year.
Yeah, but enough to say this team don't change it, they're winning a cup. Because if the answer isn't
the changes though.
Yeah, I'm saying if they don't, if the answer isn't immediately less, you have to make a change because it's getting embarrassing at this point. Like it is, and not even to be salty. Like if you aren't 100% confident this team can win a cup if you gave them another chance next year, you have to make a change. You have to. Like again, I cannot believe this happened again. I can.
No, I don't know. I'm confident this team has what it takes to win a cup because they're a good team. And like if you trade Willie and the team gets better, I'm on board, and I'm a huge Willie fan. I just want the team to be better. So if I'm 100% on board to make changes, should those changes be logical, and I have faith in this management team to make a trade that is logical. So if that is on that condition, I'm on board for making any changes.
Yeah, I mean, William Nylander is like the quintessential example of a depth scorer, especially on that second line. Like he provides a level of scoring depth that not many other players can provide on the second line, but he's not even cracking the second line anymore. And if you're not going to play him on second line minutes, you can't make this team.
Well, I think at the end of the season, they were just sort of spreading it out. But towards the end of the series, he was playing on the second line again.
Yeah, in Game 7, he was. In Game 7, he was. What I will give the Leafs credit for is that you're right. Like in literally every single game, off the puck, this team was so tenacious. They were so strong. They pushed. They showed they wanted it. The only player I will say chose to play when he wanted to was William Nylander.
Yeah.
Right? And that just cannot happen on any NHL team, but it cannot happen on a team that is this desperate to win.
That's fair.
Right? Remember that they were down, 5-0, and that clip went viral about Eddie Olczyk saying he was going to sit him for that play where William Nylander stopped moving his feet on a forecheck.
Yeah.
Right? That can't happen.
No, I agree. I'm not going to defend that because that's indefensible.
Right? So what I'm saying is if there is a guy to move, it has to be him.
If there is a guy to move, it is probably Willie. I think when we're on the same page, we're just talking in circles now that if it's going to make a change, at least let's try and make sure the change makes us better.
Yeah.
It's not just get rid of him for, I don't know, whoever, just to say we made a change. It's got to be a change for a reason. And if they do that, yeah, I'm on board. I want this team to win.